Hello, it's Judith here. And today I'm going to talk about communications and the importance of good communications to maintaining all of the relationships in your life, not just the romantic ones, but the friends, the children, parents, work colleagues. Good communication is important to every single relationship in your life. And miscommunication can be very damaging to you and the recipient. So a miscommunication can lead to all of those feelings, those negative feelings that we really don't enjoy having. So it could be fear that you've upset somebody, anger that they've upset you, sadness because there seems to be something going wrong with the relationship, all of those negative feelings. And if they keep happening in anybody's life, they can be a contributor to or even a cause of mental ill health. So they really are absolutely vitally important. And I maintain, I'm going to try and prove in a minute, that it's worse in the 21st century. Although communication is easier, the impact of miscommunication is also much easier. Or miscommunication is easier and therefore its impact is easier. So if you go way, way back, even before I was born, when people generally lived in villages and everything was done through conversation. Now, I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm not saying neighbours didn't upset one another. But there was limited opportunity, let's put it like that. Moving on a bit further, everything was done in writing. And not everybody was literate, so only a few people initially, or the upper class, as it were, who'd been educated, were able to communicate in writing. And writing was a serious business, and people took care about it, not just care about what it looked like, but the words that they used. And ultimately, education became fully available to everybody and everybody could benefit from being able to write letters. And letters were a huge part of communication, particularly during wartime in the 20th century. And along the way came telegrams, which were used in dire emergency. So most people who had friends or family mainly, killed in either the First or the Second World War, got to hear about it from a telegram. And then post-war, telegrams became nice because they were things you sent to your friends when they got married and you weren't actually able to be there, or even if you were. So good and bad, but instant communication for those days. Alongside that was the development of the telephone, again, not readily available to everybody. But we're back to conversation here where, you can still, because the body language is missing, there's still more opportunity for miscommunication, but we're still holding conversations. Then came email, which arguably should be as good as a letter. But I don't think most emails are written with the same care and attention that somebody in the, 18th, 19th century would take in writing a letter. Because paper, pens, inks, stamps were all very expensive, so it was an important thing to do, whereas emails can be dashed off in a fit of anger, and often are. And then we get to this century, where the means of communications has increased. I was going to say exponentially. It's not quite exponentially for the mathematical critical of you, but significantly. I now have to check a number of means of communication in order to make sure I don't miss anybody who's contacted me. Now, that's fine. That's my business. But we are inundated with communication. And the rules have changed, so if you go back to the letter delivered by horse, it could take days or weeks to reach you. Telegrams, yes, were more instant. Phone calls are pretty instantaneous. Emails, obviously, instantaneous. And messaging. But the expectation now seems to be for an instant response. And this is where we run into relationship problems. So I've had clients who are convinced their relationship is breaking up because they're used to getting regular messages during the day, and for whatever reason their partner's missed the lunchtime one, and it's all over. It's the end of the world, absolute disaster. Most of the teenage and early 20 generation, I think, expect to be responded to very, very quickly, and they have their own particular type of communication. So, then they're not on Facebook so much anymore, they're elsewhere. And this leads to generational conflicts. So I use social media for my business, not really for my life. I'd much prefer a phone call or meeting face to face. And okay, I admit it, I'm old fashioned. I value the speediness of messaging for my business. I don't want to be permanently having to look at my phone in order not to upset a friend or a relative. But that is what's happening, particularly if you go from the sort of grandparent to grandchild relationship where the expectations are very, very different. So I suppose the message here is, if you are being upset and disturbed by communications that are going on, talk to the person who's upsetting you and explain why it's upsetting you. Is it the expectation of an instant response? Is it the words that are used? Because, there's a new language now. I was looking at something on Instagram from one of my granddaughters, and there's hardly a whole word in it. So they have their own codes, and things are very much, we're not speaking in full sentences or not communicating always in full sentences. And the more words we cut out, the more opportunity there is for miscommunication. And miscommunication comes from both sides. It comes from both the sender and the recipient. The less clear you are, the less words you use, the more opportunity there is for misunderstandings. And as I say, I see clients, not just the need for an instant reaction, but also the quality, if you like, of the message can cause endless overthinking about what does this mean, because it's not clear. So just think, who am I communicating with? What sort of communication do they prefer? And if you don't know, ask them. That shows you care about the relationship and you want to communicate with them in the way that's best for them. And if a friend appears to be upset or isn't contacting you, just have a think about what your last communication was like. And perhaps was there a misunderstanding, maybe inadvertent on your part. But if you really are struggling with the effects of miscommunication, particularly in the important relationships in your life, and becoming anxious or angry or fearful or whatever, then I'm always happy to talk to you. So get in touch. And we can talk about the practicalities after dealing with the emotional impacts on you. Okay? So that's it for today. Any comments? I'm very happy to be disagreed with. So if you have a viewpoint on the topic, please make a comment below or get in touch with me directly. Okay then, and I'll see you next time. Bye.